And welcome back to the Conscious Contact podcast. My name is Genay Peavey, and I'm here with my co-host Susan Sanders. And today we are going to talk about my favorite thing in all forms, rest.
Happy New Year, everyone. Let's rest.
Yes. Put down your goal of 75 things you want to get done, because I don't think you can get those done without proper rest. And you're a big cheerleader for that.
I am, and I am such a cheerleader. I didn't write this book, but I have a whole book that I bought about rest. Sacred Rest by Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith. And the first thing that I want to suggest to people is that rest does not mean sleep.
Yeah.
Rest is separate from sleep. And one of the reasons why I love Dr. Dalton Smith's book is that she talks about 7 different kinds of rest. And I'll link up this book in the show notes. But for those of you that are listening, I just held it up to the camera like everybody's just watching. But the name of the book is Sacred Rest. And the author is Sandra Dalton Smith. So for those of you that are just listening, that is the title. And the 7 different kinds of rest are physical rest, mental rest, emotional, spiritual, social, sensory, and creative.
Before you get overwhelmed.
This is not going to be a 7-hour podcast.
Yeah. No. This is not a how-to. That's not what our podcast is.
Right.
So what did that book make you feel?
Well, what it brought to my attention is that there are lots of different ways to rest. And there's a season for all these different kinds of rests. And sometimes doing an activity is resting.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want us to talk about today is that all the different ways rest could look, because it's not sleep. Rest should be restorative. And at different times of our lives, there are different needs for rest. Sometimes it is a physical rest and you need to sit down. But sometimes it's more than that. Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about when we were brainstorming ideas is that Shabbat fits into this as well.
Yeah.
So can you tell us more about what does that word mean?
Mm-hmm.
How does it fit in to your life?
Yeah. So Shabbat is the Sabbath in Judaism. So in Judaism, the week starts on Sunday. Therefore, the 7th day would be Saturday. That is the day of rest versus Sunday for Christianity and a couple of other smaller denominations. So it is a time where you are not supposed to do anything. So if you are Orthodox or even some conservatives, you aren't supposed to light a flame, theoretically. So that applies to no turning on the oven or the stove, no driving a car because that's a combustion engine, that's a flame, that type of thing, down to your thoughts should be focused on a higher purpose, not on yourself. It's definitely like a family day to recharge with them, but it is clearing out all of the week, getting rid of all of that and leaving it behind. Like you are intentionally trying to put that away. And I love it because of the rest part, obviously, but also because it clearly delineates time. And as a routine type A person, that is really wonderful. So you have Shabbat. That is the start of Shabbat at sundown, or I think it's, let me not get ahead of myself. So sundown, Friday night, starts Shabbat. And then Shabbat is through the night, through Saturday. And then Saturday night, when you see 2 stars in the sky, and please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, that is when Shabbat is over.
Mm-hmm.
And you do what's called Havdalah, which is, and this is oversimplifying it, you're delineating Shabbat is over. It was wonderful. It was glorious. Let's think back on how amazing that was, how cleared out we are. I hope that you have a week of peace and love, and let's jump into this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of like the feeling I would get when I would watch Barney as a kid. Like,
okay, we just took a weird turn.
I know.
Keep going.
I'll tie it back, I swear. Just amount of joy in saying goodbye, but also hello at the same time.
Oh.
Because
Mhm.
his, I'm not going to sing, I promise. His goodbye song and the see you next week or tomorrow or whatever it is.
Mhm.
It's kind of like that. Like you are both savoring what has just passed,
Mhm.
having awe and anticipation for the future, but at the same time, still being in that very moment. So it's kind of
Mm.
combining past, present, and future all in one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful.
I think it's great. I'm not great at being strictly observant about it. That's one of
Mhm.
my like continual goals.
Mm.
Every month is like replacing the priority on that because it is so important aside from all of the beautiful feelings and the meaning behind it. Having a day where I don't do anything and it's not lazy,
Mhm.
like I don't like that word. That kind of irks me. Because it's just a blanket statement. And having a time where I am intentionally still. And anytime I feel that urge to move, I am reminded why I am still.
Right.
And because reconnecting with that higher power, that thing that's bigger than me,
Mhm.
I have to, for my sanity as someone in recovery, I have to do that. And for me, since I am Jewish, observing Shabbat allows me to do that in a way that is extremely intentional because, again, anytime I want to open my phone or anytime I want to do
Right.
something that requires action, I am reminded, wait a second, it is Shabbat. I am to be resting. And
Mhm.
again, everyone has, this is my own personal observance of Shabbat. Everyone observes it in a different way.
Mhm.
But anytime I feel that tinge to move, I'm reminded why I'm supposed to not do that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I sometimes I still do, believe me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, is there a such thing as and I don't want to be disrespectful to the authentic idea of Shabbat.
Mm.
So of a daily rest, of giving yourself a daily Shabbat, or does that sort of bastardize the whole idea of the true intention of
Shabbat
it?
is definitely separate. And I mean, in the songs, in the literature, it is set aside specifically for that
For
in
the
that time.
specific Friday to Saturday.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I look at that daily rest as like 10th step at night.
Yeah.
That is what I would consider my daily rest, reset, my emotional clear out, my spiritual, let me come back to center.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess the consistency of it. So what I want to kind of the thread that I would love for us and for everybody listening and watching to thread through their lives is the idea of the intention.
Yes.
So the intention of Shabbat being, it sounds like there's a very clear beginning and ending
Mm-hmm.
ceremony almost, and a clear delineation of
Yeah.
your intention to rest
Yes.
and clear out and start over, and leaving the week, the day, or in Shabbat, it's leaving the week behind.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of a ritual to do that kind of on the regular.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I'm thinking about, because of course I'm starting with my super high brain level. Not my brain is a super high level, but my mental, and then we're gonna
Yeah. Yeah.
get down more into my body because I'm sinking into this topic a bit. So in my day job as a project manager, I facilitate a lot of meetings. And I always start the meeting. The purpose for the call today is thus and such.
Mhm.
And then I wrap it up. And I very clearly say, I'm going to send out the meeting notes with who does what by when. And then I say, and so we're going to go ahead and end the call. Because have you ever been on conference calls where everyone's like,
Bye.
okay, is the meeting over? Oh,
Yeah.
shoot, wait. Oh,
Angela,
are we
can
done?
you stay on
Right,
for
click.
20?
Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah.
Mm.
And where we all just kind of stumble and start.
Yeah.
Because I very much like the setting of the intention and the clear delineation of we are done.
Yeah.
And then if I would drop that down into like the true connection with my higher power, because it doesn't have to be with anyone.
Yeah.
That's what I hear you saying about the it's not a tradition. The ritual of Shabbat is you're not connecting with other people.
No.
Sure, you could have a table of people,
yeah.
etc.
Family is around, and that is part of it. However, yes.
Right. I love this, and it ties into this list of 7 things that I started with, because there are different ways to observe that. So what does your daily tradition of rest look like?
Yeah, so I've got this big book, and if you know what I'm talking about, then welcome. If not, don't worry about it. But so
and not to be exclusionary, it's a recovery manual of sorts.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And there's pretty clear-cut ritual in that. I mean, to me, it's spelled out on the page. There's particular questions that you ask yourself. They're all in order. It's followed with a prayer and an amen.
And that's the 10-step daily daily activities, whatever that. I'm really having a hard time with words today.
Reflecting. Yeah, reflecting on your day.
Yes.
Resentful, dishonest, self-seeking, afraid, all of those things.
Do you write that?
I used to a lot. Now it is just like a mental, like it's either in the tub or in the bed. And there's an app that you can use. Like if you are so inclined, I would caution you not to, but whatever gets you to do it, that it goes through and it asks you the questions, and there's a space for you to journal underneath it, and it saves it in a log for you. Paper, obviously, but for me, it's a mental thing. Unless I'm really chewing on something, and then I'll write it out again, because I'll be like, and then I did this stupid thing today because I still haven't dealt with this underlying issue. But yeah, it's, for me, that's very clear. As someone in recovery, I feel lucky that I have that framework.
Yes.
But it is all about intentionality. And I think that that's my big thing with rest is it doesn't just happen. And that's my issue. And that's another podcast episode, but that's my issue with self-care is to me, there's not enough ritual or setting aside. And I'm sure some people do, but it is too broad to be beneficial in a lot of cases in my experience. And
what is too broad? What's that's too
self-care.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I'm going to go buy something, or I'm going to take a bath, or I'm going to,
Right.
To me, there's not enough structure or ritual or delineation for it to fill you up. It's kind of like meditation in that sense. Like I feel like you have to start with that intentionally, or it's just not going to happen. Or it's not going to be what it should be to fill you up, type of thing. Like you need to not sit in a room full of 20 people and try to meditate. I mean, you can if it's an emergency. But I feel like that's not going to be helpful. And the same thing with rest. I feel like you have to set it aside, whether it's planning to do it and putting it in a physical planner, or it is just saying, like, specifically this particular time during the day is when I'm going to have that, and building that up and making it be what is good for you. It doesn't matter what comes after that delineation, but making that special.
Yeah. And so I have had meetings where I've been in meditation with 20 people. Whether it's meetings or in a special meditation class, and it's been very powerful. Yeah. So I think if the intention is everyone is there to
see, again, the intention, and not
exactly.
Like I'm in the middle of a work meeting and I'm about to scream, let me meditate real quick. That is, yes, that's what I was meaning more so.
Right. Yeah. Meditating as I'm standing in line at the grocery store that's just sort of a mental checkout.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
Yeah.
Check out. But I think there are different things that we're looking at here. So if we're talking about the 10th step and the wrapping up the day, connecting with our higher power, that to me feels like one intention. But then if I'm in a group and we're all doing that together, that feels more like on the social end of the spectrum. And I do think there's value in that. I see that. But I think there's value in all of that. Just depending on what you're trying to do. And I think we need both. I think there's value in connecting with other people who have the same intention as you, but you have to
Yes.
start with the individual relationship that what I have found for me is starting with the individual relationship I have with my higher power
Yeah. Yeah.
is more more productive really for the intention of me being mentally healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am not a meditate in a group of people type of thing, just like I'm never going to reach absolute zen during a yoga class because I pay attention to other people too much. And it's just it's a stimulation thing and I just can't. My version of that would be like going to temple for
Uh-huh.
services or something. It's the same intention, like we're all there for the same purpose to connect with something
Right.
bigger, and you can feel that, and there's chatting before and after type of vibe. But yeah, the
Mhm.
meditate I can't, and that's a
Yeah.
me thing, not a them thing. I just
Sure. We're all different.
yeah.
Yeah. And I like that we're talking about this today, being New Year's Day,
Mm.
because there's the whole idea of New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
And please, if you hear one thing, everybody listening and watching, we are not saying your New Year's resolution needs to be to get more rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Period. End of story. This is a bigger conversation about what works for us is the connecting with the idea of rest.
Yeah.
And that has helped foster connections with ourselves, higher power, each other, and other like-minded people.
Yeah.
And then the idea that there are different ways to do that, going back to, the list of 7 different ways. Because when I was first looking into rest, I'm like, well, I could meditate or I could sleep. Like, how else am I resting? But
Yeah.
sometimes it is rest from media. Sometimes it is rest from people.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is rest from the wrong people. And, we've been talking about that for the last couple weeks.
Mhm.
So there are lots of different ways that we could all approach this. And I do like the idea of we're leaving something behind and turning the new page on the week, like you were
Yeah.
teaching us about Shabbat.
Yeah.
And I don't know any better time than January 1st to do that.
Woo, yeah. Yeah. And again, with like, there's a million different ways to rest. All you have to do is set that as your intention. I mean, it could be watching Netflix and zoning out on something. I mean, it could be if you are intentional with it and you're keeping that space sacred, whatever you're doing. Like
Yeah.
me, we're recording this a little bit in advance, obviously. I'm making ornaments for gifts for Christmas, and it is with plastic canvas and crocheting. That is extremely restful to me.
Yes.
Because when I start, it is I am going to work on these ornaments right now. I am not going to stress about it. I am going to pay attention to the tiny holes in the yarn and
Right.
and tactile.
Yes.
And that is rest
Yes.
as well. Yeah.
And I would suggest that is creative rest.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I also think that when we look at all the different options of rest that are out there, that it's endless.
Yeah.
The list of things that we could do is endless.
Yeah.
And taking time to do that, whatever that is, rest is for you, taking time to do that is going to help prevent some of the burnout that we see in the world today. It's going to help kind of create that space to make a more authentic connection.
Yes.
Because when our mind is in that monkey mind frantic pace, it's very hard to stop and make a true connection. Because like at the beginning of the podcast, when I was all like, oh, my words are in my head, I can't. But when you have the moment to rest and you can drop down in your body and think for a second,
yeah,
that is where the true connection can come from.
Yeah. And that's the whole point. Like, that rest is for you to be more inside of your own human fleshy self and less so in the world and in your brain, and I'd like last minute coffee with a friend yesterday. It was so perfect timing. It was a hectic day and I almost said no because I had stuff before and after, but I was like, no, I want to see this person. This is great. I never have people make last minute plans with me. I don't know what vibe I give off that I can't do that, but I normally don't. So we met up and we had coffee. We both She got there before me. We both got it in mugs. Like, not the to-go cups, but this place offers
Yep.
mugs.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, did you get yours in a mug? And she's like, yes. I think there's something so important about that.
Mm-hmm.
And she said this, and I say this all the time on here. It's going to sound very familiar. I swear I haven't talked to her about that. I haven't seen her in a while. She's like, I have to romanticize my own life. You know what I mean?
Maybe she's a podcast listener.
Man, that would be cool. But she didn't say anything. And I said,
Yep.
I screamed that from the rooftops.
Yes.
It is so, and why drink, if you're going to stay there and drink the coffee, obviously, why get a to-go cup? One, it's wasteful. Two, you're missing that warm mug, you know, that you're cupping in your hand. And we both had our coffees and we just sat there and looked at each other and went, ah,
Yeah.
smelled the cinnamon. And we just stared at each other for a sec because it's that thing, you know, you can feel when you click over
Yes.
to being actually here
Mm-hmm.
and not wherever the fuck our brains go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And if there are people out there that are beginners at this, sometimes what I have found for me is something super simple, taking that deep breath.
Yes.
Be where your feet are.
Mm-hmm. Stare at your feet. Where are they? Focus. Feel them. Feel your toes in your shoes or your slippers or
Yep. And ground, you know, the second level, if you will, I would say, is there's a meditation that a counselor of mine had done about picturing your feet being rooted in the space.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do this sitting in a chair, you know, your sit bones and just rooting to the earth and connecting to the earth.
Yeah.
Another easy, if you will, tool that I've been taught is it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things you see, 4 things you hear,
Mm-hmm.
3 things you smell, 2 things I'm lost track of which ones I said.
Yeah, the senses.
Go through all 5 of your senses and
Yes.
do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Real quick in there, that is so important. And getting in touch with your senses.
Yes.
Because again, when you're up here, you are not using any of this fleshiness that you've got going on. Like, you are up here in your brain synapses. You're not even using your sight if your eyes are open. For me, most of the time, like when I'm up here and I'm I'm not connected with anything. I'm not feeling anything. I'm not smelling anything. I'm not seeing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is my company, so I guess this is an ad or sponsored by, I don't know. But in Renew Planner at the very beginning, because it was so important for me, I think it was my therapist that told me something similar to that. Not the 5, 4, 3, 2, but you need to be intentional because I have anxiety and I can't pay attention to save my life. She said, how do you want we were speaking about meditation specifically. How do you want it to smell?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to see? How do you want it to feel? Like, is there going to be pillows and blankets there? Like,
Right.
set that, again, the ritual of it
Right.
all.
Mm-hmm.
And connecting with your actual human flesh bag, because I think that gets left to the side. I mean, we are just go, 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 go. And sometimes the only things that we're using are our eyes and our brains, especially with social media.
Yeah.
Like, all that other stuff just gets dulled.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like cut off
Mm-hmm.
or shoved in a corner in a box type of thing.
Right.
And to me, that leaves me feeling really empty because I'm not fully using everything that I'm capable of accessing in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes for senses and for that connection with like the world, with yourself, with like the actual world, not
Right.
what's shown to you.
The authentic connection instead of just the
Yes.
liking and the commenting on posts and such.
100%.
Yeah. And there are actual physical and hormonal things happening in our bodies when we're in our head, one thing is happening.
Yeah.
And when we drop down into our body, another thing is happening. Your heart rate slows down, your breathing rate slows down, blood pressure drops, hormonal changes. So when we're in our head and we're thinking a million miles an hour, that cortisol that's released, that is what causes all the glucose to release.
Ugh.
And then if we're not actually burning off that glucose,
Yeah.
that's what gets stored in our body. So the stress is causing heart disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, obesity, all of
Yeah.
that. So when we feel calm and start to maybe talk slower
Ooh.
and take some deep breaths, things like that, it's literally healthier for us physically too. And that's why some of these ideas of different rest are very tied together, because when we physically rest and sit down and take a deep breath and slow down, that is helping our mental health as well as the physical health. So those things get tied together. When you sit down and do the crafting of making the ornaments, that is, engaging in the right side of your brain instead of the left side of your brain. And the more we can engage every part of our brain, the more our brain health improves.
Yeah. I gotta live forever. So I gotta do
That
a lot
is
of
not
that.
going to be another episode. How to live forever.
No. And I probably wouldn't want to, but it is so important. And again, I don't think that gets talked about enough. I think people default to self-care
Yeah.
without talking about the intentionality behind self-care.
Yeah. So why do
The
you
language.
think, why do you think people are resistant to rest?
I don't know. I mean,
Or why was past Genay resistant to rest? Let's not assume what everybody's thinking.
well, one, I was drinking alcoholically, so that did not help. There was no option for anything else other than like basic core survival instincts and
Did you
all
used
of that.
to think that drinking was self-care and rest?
I mean, maybe passing out. Maybe when I would black out seemed like it allowed me to not, like, that other person would take over and my brain wasn't connecting anymore.
Because my drinking experience was, I deserve this.
Oh.
Like, I've had a bad day, so I'm going to take care of myself with a drink. I'm celebrating, so I'm taking care of myself with a drink. It's Wednesday, so I'm taking care of myself with a drink because I've made it halfway through.
Yeah, no.
It's Friday.
Yeah.
Woo! It's Thursday Eve. It's Friday Eve. Oh my God, whatever day it was.
Exactly. It's raining. It's sunny.
I could justify that this is me taking care of myself. I deserve a break.
Yeah.
And a break being a rest, right?
Yeah.
If we're extrapolating
You were
to the topic.
much more conscious about it than I was. There was no higher thinking going on. There was no justification even towards the end.
You were awake, so that's what you did.
Yeah. And I started drinking alcoholically from the beginning at like right around 13. And I mean, that was it. That was just, this is how it's always been. That's how it's always going to be.
Forever and ever, amen.
Yeah. I didn't think it wasn't like and I can definitely understand that thought process because I saw other people around me being like maybe heavy drinkers or normal people. They'd be like, oh, it's Friday. Let's get wasted or whatever. And I'm like, dude, who cares what day of the week it is? Like, I was going to do that anyway.
You rookie.
Yeah. It was just a weird thought process to me. Like, oh, you have special days that you drink? Like,
yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah. So rest never came to your consciousness because it would just interrupt your drinking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was like, what a waste of time. So I guess theoretically, like, it was absent in an intentional way, just in that sense. Like,
you didn't value it.
No. And survival wise, it was not helpful to me. So it's not something that I did because it wouldn't help me. Well, I mean, maybe it would have, but help me make up lies or manipulate people or cover up what I did the night before type of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if there's resistance to rest, and I don't want to put my feelings out on anybody else. So I'm interested, comment in the post, the social media post for this episode about resistance to rest. Because I was resistant to sitting down and thinking because I didn't want to hear what was going to come up.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of people's issue. I mean, again, I can only speak for myself kind of thing, but same. Yeah. I mean, that if I feel myself being resistant to rest in present time, it's always because there's something that I just don't feel completely ready to deal with.
Yeah.
There's something I'm like, if I sit in silence, that thing's going to come up. Or I'm going to have to look at what I'm doing over here or this thing over there.
Right.
Because it does shed it's just you in there most of the time, like, yeah, sometimes I'll feel like higher power in the spirit of the universe, but most of the time it's just me in there. And if I'm not taking care of me on a consistent basis, when I'm quiet with me, oof, it's rough.
Yeah. And I think the flip side is what is also true for me, that when I am resisting rest, it's because I get sucked into the value of productivity. And the American definition of productivity, meaning accomplishing things.
Yeah.
And I cannot sit down until everything is ticked off and crossed off and whatever, which is sometimes why that's not true, which is why now I put on my list every day to on-ramp my day, to journal, and to do my Sustainable Sue action items, because those are the 3 things that are the most important to me.
Yes.
Like, I don't put on there, I can't think of an example. Like, I don't put on there, like, sit down for 5 minutes. If that happens, that is great. But, I don't put down, like, read my book. I don't put that on my list.
Yeah.
Because that will naturally happen. And if it doesn't, that's fine. But I also don't want to
cheapen it with making it a to-do list item also.
Yes, that is where I'm going. Thank you. I'm so glad. Because my words aren't.
No, I do the same thing. I feel the same way. I don't like to put rest on the to-do list, like my restful things, whether that's my reading or crocheting, or like, I know I'm now intuitively drawn to do those things. I want to do those things. Yes. They are special. They are not, I don't want to cheapen them by putting them on my to-do list of things to check off. Because then again, it makes life less special when I do that.
Yeah. And where I was going with the idea of the productivity and having to accomplish things, there's a fine line between prioritizing something and just putting it on because it just needs to be checked off.
Yes. Yeah.
As I'm starting to create a new habit around journaling every day again, I'm putting it on the list because it hasn't necessarily been part of on-ramping my day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I want to make sure that it is, whether it's 30 days, 60 days, 20, whatever it takes to make a habit these days, whatever the research says.
Years.
Once it is forever, right?
Yeah.
Once it's more ingrained, then perhaps I won't have to include it. But I am prioritizing that right now, so I include it on my list. But also, it's not a 20-item to-do list anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I find myself resisting rest, that's the point I was trying to make. It is because I don't feel like I've deserved it because I haven't achieved. Right. And that is a huge red flag for me these days, to say, stop.
Yeah.
And that might just be sit down, read, whatever. So there are times when I will not go through my work shutdown ritual because I'm completely sucked into answering this, respond to that. I've got these many unread chat messages on Teams, and I just step away from my computer and I will go downstairs and read while Paul cooks. Yeah. Or hold up, TikToks or whatever for him to watch while he cooks, because he doesn't respond to any of mine. And that is, that is rest.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that thought process, and like, you don't need to earn it. And I take rest right after I wake up. Like, that is time with God. Like, the first thing I do when my eyes flutter open and that alarm is going off is thank you, God, for waking me up for another day. Like, and intentionally start from there. I have a larger morning practice than that, but if I just start my day right then, like, I turn the alarm off and I sit in the bed and I go, wow, like, I'm alive again today.
Yeah. And I see that as banking rest, because I do something similar. Yes. And I think the more rest or intention we can bank around that, and store up. Yeah. When shit flies during the day, I've kind of patted myself a little bit.
Yes. You have a spiritual airbag. Yes.
Yes. We could just stop right there.
I know.
Where's my pen? Spiritual airbag. Yeah. Is that the name of the episode?
I would totally name it that. You text me and we'll do it. But it is important. Like, you do have to bank it. Because, it's like life insurance. Like, you have to keep paying that thing, because when you need it, if it's not there, you're screwed. You know what I mean? Like, or the people around you are going to be screwed. Yeah. So it is that. And I also want people to take away from this, we're not talking about like 4 hours of your day spent. This could be 3 minutes. This could be a minute. Yes. Like, it is just taking that time to be like, I am a human being. Let me like take a deep breath and focus on like my body being here in this moment, reconnecting with whatever it is that's important to you.
Yep.
And just taking a moment to just be there.
Yes.
It's,
yeah. It's okay to plan it. It's okay to bank it.
Yes.
It's okay to prioritize it.
Yes.
It's okay to set an alarm on your phone that every day is going to go off to say breathe.
Yes.
If someone is listening and you're that new at it, please take this as an invitation to do whatever it takes.
Yes. Like weather on the 11s. Every time a 1 comes up at the end of the time, like maybe take a second and be like, wow, okay, look at the time. Yeah. Or like breathe.
And if you can't even remember that, use the tools you have, the alarms on your phone, an appointment in your calendar, whatever it takes, because those are the small pieces, the small building blocks that make that eventually be a habit.
Yes.
And the more of us that have that as a habit, to rest, to take care of ourselves, that is what can give us the space to make that connection with ourselves and each other.
Yes.
For sure.
That's it. That's
All
the
right.
episode. That's perfect.
Should we move into the moments of joy? Is there anything else you wanted to share about that?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to. Can I share first?
Of course.
Sorry, I just rolled right over you.
Of course. No, you didn't.
So one thing I wanted to share that I'm excited about in 2023. It is adding something to my life, but I do consider this to be rest because gardening brings me so much joy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be starting the Master Gardener program in Guilford County, and it's 2 series of classes. One's in the spring and one is in the fall, and there's a volunteer commitment, so it's a significant amount of time. And I've been putting it off because I'm like, well, when I retire, then I'll have time for the classes, this, that, and the other. And I am not willing to wait until I retire to start living the life I want.
Yes.
And that to me, it really feels restful because it is resting from the obligations.
Yeah.
And my mom was a master gardener, and I feel that connection to her in doing some of that and the volunteering. And, man, I'm not fucking around. I want to live the life that I want to live now.
Yes.
While I'm 48
Yes.
and not have to wait until I'm in my 60s.
Yes. 100%.
Knock on wood, we can retire in our 60s.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. And just like putting those classes in my calendar brought me a lot of joy this past week.
That's so exciting.
Yeah. So thank you to those who vouched for me and being references to that program as well.
Yeah. Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah.
You'll have to send me a link so I can peek at that.
Yeah. What you got on your joy list this week?
So when we're recording this, I don't have this thing yet. But when this is live,
joy.
Yeah, when this is live, I will have this. So for like Hanukkah presents, Luke is basically just like, you here, let me know how much money you need to buy what you want for you. And that's fine with me.
Right.
And I'm like, that sounds great.
So a Venmo transfer.
Yeah.
That's super romantic. For us, it is.
It is. 100% it is. It's the best thing in the world. Because sometimes I don't know what to tell him. So it gives me time to meditate on that and take a breather and be intentional about it. So one of the things that I asked for from him, AKA got for myself, but it's from him, is a light phone. And I'll put a link. You have to remind me to do this, but I'll put a link in the show. Yes, Light.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they do spell it how it would normally be spelled, but it's a dumb phone.
Oh,
yes.
Not like, this is the phone I'm going to use for lights for all of the TikToks I do. Okay.
Yes. So it's got a screen like a Kindle. And you can't get on the internet. There's no apps. It's calls and texts only.
So sort of like a flip phone.
Yes.
From the early
yeah. A little bit easier to use. You can still use like voice to text if I want to text.
Oh, nice.
That type of thing. But there's no app. So the only thing that you have access to is a contact list, an alarm. They have their own map system if I need to use that. And podcasts. But it's just an auto download. You have to set it on the computer in your account to auto download them to your phone. You can't just peruse.
Interesting.
Yes. And that's the only things I need. you know? So
Right.
I've ummed and awed about getting a dumb phone for a long time. And this is the one I did so much research.
Right. And I love this idea rather than just going back and getting a flip phone from
Yes.
2004
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, I need the maps.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie. I can't. I got lost on the way home from Friendly Center last
Girl,
week.
yes.
And I've lived here for
I have the worst sense of
15
direction. That's a whole nother episode, dude. I
No,
swear
we're
to
not
God.
doing an episode. It'd be super short. We can't find our way anywhere.
Yeah.
At the end.
So I'm going to keep my iPhone to use for business and stuff like that, but it's going to live on my desk and it's not going to move.
I can't wait to hear how this is turning out.
So this is anticipatory, same as yours, joy of like, this is going to be amazing because before everyone's like, you can just delete the apps from your phone. I've done that. I've taken breaks. I'm an addict. Welcome to the show. If you've never met me before, if there's something that I can overdo, I'm going to overdo it. And social media is one of those things, even though I am well aware and I talk about all the time how bad it is for me and for most other people. I can't stop. It is like an addiction, and it turns those instant synapses on in your brain.
Yeah, the people building the apps know what they're doing.
Yes, they do.
They're
and
very good
There's
at
documentaries that go very deep into this, and I don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
And I want to opt out, and I can't just not have a cell phone because of getting stuck on the side of the road, or if someone needs to find me, or if I need to find someone else. Like, that is not necessarily an option. So this is the next best thing.
I love it that you're using technology to manage your technology addiction.
Yes. And this company is wonderful. Smart. And I love all their messaging. I would love for them to be a sponsor. This is not paid for.
Is the company called Light?
The Light Phone. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that is the company name.
All right. Well, we'll link up to it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Genay and I will take care of that for you, but check it out.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yes.
Well, thank you. This has been great. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
We would love to connect with you on social media, but this is Susan. If you want to come find me, you can find me at sustainablesue.com or on Instagram. I'm at sustainable_Sue.
Yes. And I am at Genay Peavey. If you're hearing this and you want to see it, it is youtube.com/the Conscious Contact Podcast. Same @ for Instagram. And let us know how you are resting, how you fight rest, all of that and in between. And we'll see you in the comments.
Thanks.
See ya.